everyone, my name's Alexis Brown, and I hope everyone's been having an amazing day so far. And today I hope to make it a bit better by telling you about one of my favorite video game franchises, Fallout. Now, most of you might be asking, well, what is Fallout? Well, I'm glad you asked. Fallout is a series of post-apocalyptic role-playing games that are set in the near future, in the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd centuries. It is inspired by an auto-punk retro-futuristic setting, along with a lot of inspiration from the post-war culture of the US in the 1950s. And you can see this when comparing the Super Duper Mart to the Do-It-Yourself, which is from 1959. So a lot of similarity there. But why was it so different? Well, for starters, their technology is vastly different when compared to ours, and a lot of the variation in the lore is because they failed to invent the transitor, which replaced vacuum tubes, and which the Fallout universe still uses. But they did find a way to use atomic energy as a seemingly limitless power source. And the last thing, the cherry on top, their government was very corrupt. So now you might be asking, well, what was the other thing they invented? Well, for starters, they mastered energy fusion, along with fission energy. They were highly advanced robots, as you can see with the Mr. Handy domestic model, and the Assaultron. These, along with many other types of robots, were very advanced, and were even proven to work hundreds of years after their creation. Next up is personal protection, which the power armor falls under. It's the most advanced type of armor which can protect you from almost anything, increases your strength, and eliminates any damage you might take from heights. There are many different kinds, and some were used for things besides combat, such as the excavator, which was designed to protect people while they were excavating, but most were used for combat, like the T-60 power armor. Now, there were many more advanced technologies, including the biomedical area, with things such as the Stimpak, which has the ability to rapidly heal almost anything, even things such as bullet wounds. And for the other technologies, you have advanced stealth technology used in armor and combat robots, holograms, neural programming, and teleporters, such as molecular relay. Now, even more differences is that they had commonwealths, 13 to be exact, and they were established in 1969 as a new level of oversight between the state and federal governments. Now, unfortunately, all this didn't last, and it led to World War III, or better known as the Great War, the only war that lasted 2 hours. It began and ended October 27, 2077, starting around 1942 a.m., after the result of decade-long fighting with other countries. In the end, no one was sure who fired first, but one thing that people knew is that it left the whole world in chaos. But why did they go to war? Well, the main reason was the depletion of natural resources, like oil, that led to conflicts with other countries, such as China and the US. It made tensions grow even more by cutting off other countries' oil supplies, and some theorize that neither side between the US and China actually dropped the first nuke, but it was actually an inside job or a cover-up by a third party. Now, before we move on to the aftermath, we need to look at vaults. Now, vaults were started way back in the 2050s, when a devastating plague built as a weapon ran through the US. They were built as a precaution for nuclear war or a plague, in which they could only hold 1,000 dwellers, and only 122 functioning vaults were finished, which is less space to house 0.1% of the US population, but otherwise most were completed by 2063. Unfortunately, they were meant to test the dwellers of the vaults with experiments. With only 17 vaults actually fit for humans to wait out the apocalypse, and they were known as control vaults, but the other 105 vaults had human experiments for annoying participants, ranging from annoying to downright lethal, and it was all for the Enclave to gather data for their own uses. The aftermath of the Great War was very astonishing, to say the least, and it left many dead or wishing that they were, and a lot of these attempts to rebuild were seemingly hopeless. Now at the bottom you see a chart. To the very left you see a regular human. Now radiation, along with different diseases, left humans to mutate into horrifying creatures. Regular radiation mutates you into a ghoul, and when you get too much, your brain starts to rot and you become a feral ghoul, attacking anything you see. Next is supermutants, only caused by the FEV, or the Forced Evolutionary Virus. There are different types of regional supermutants, so it depends on what might happen to you, but in very rare cases, it gets so bad that you can start growing to uncontrollable rates that you become a mindless supermutant behemoth. Continuing down is the Wendigo. They are very case-specific, only when a human has been exposed to radiation and has cannibalized recently. And in only one recorded case, 3 Wendigos mutated together to create the horrifying Wendigo Colossus. Now last but not least, you have the Scorched, which is a disease carried from a giant mutated bat, sound familiar, that turns you into a mindless slave to the bats, or better known as the Scorched Beast. Now of course, humans aren't the only thing getting mutated, so what about other animals? Now most animals, such as the megasloth, they grow to enormous sizes, and you can even see a human comparison on the right picture, but also come in a variety of mutations. One prominent example is the deathclaw with the albino, glowing, and the chameleon variations, with many other types. One other thing about some animals is what can happen to us humans can happen to them, such as dog. To the right is a mongrel, which is just a cool dog, and to the bottom is a mutant hound, which is what happens when a dog is exposed to FEV. Now with every good story is multiple factions. There are a lot, but here are the major factions prominent throughout the games. The Enclave, the Brotherhood of Steel, Caesar's Legion, Mr. House, the NCR or the New California Republic, the Boomers, Yes Men, the Institute, the Railroad, the Minutemen, the Raiders, and the Gunners. But were they good? Which factions were the good guys? Well, it was always dependent on you, the player, on who to decide with, whether it be the Minutemen, or the Brotherhood, the NCR, or the Institute. Now I'm going to be doing these in chronological order, not by which games came out first. Fallout 76, year 2102. You are a vault dweller from the Control Vault, Vault 76. You wake up 25 years after the Great War because it's Reclamation Day, and you've already slept in. You are tasked with gathering your things and heading out to the wastelands of West Virginia, Appalachia, to see what's left and to reclaim what has been lost. And your travels, you come across a plague scorching Appalachia, and your task is to find the source and destroy it. Fallout year 2161. You play as a vault dweller from Vault 13, and you are tasked with finding a new water chip after the one in your vault has been damaged beyond repair. And you only have 150 days until the vault's supply runs out. It takes place in Southern California. This was the first game in the series and was released in 1997 as a third-person strategy game. Fallout 2, year 2248. You play as the Chosen One, the protagonist from Fallout 1's Child. You are chosen to find the GAC, also known as the Garden of Eden Creation Kit, which is a tool to help re-establish a civilization. And with the twist, you are later tasked with saving your village. It also takes place in Southern California. Fallout 3, year 2277. You play as a vault dweller from Vault 101. You live a good life, protected and surrounded by friends, but one day your dad goes missing under concerning circumstances. So you wander the wasteland of Washington, D.C. in order to find him. Fallout 3 is unlike Fallout 1 and Fallout 2. It is now a first-person shooter, and for 2008, the graphics aren't bad. Fallout New Vegas, year 2281. You play as a courier, and you don't remember much, but what you do remember is that you were shot in the head and left for dead. You need to seek You head out to seek revenge, and you even change the course of the Mojave Wasteland forever. Still an older game, and was also built on the same game engine as Fallout 3. Fallout 4, year 2297. You play the story of the sole survivor of Vault 111. After waking up 200 years after the Great War into a world you no longer know, you set out to find a missing loved one, and decide the fate of what remains of Boston. Way better graphics, and the game controls are a lot smoother, and the picture was taken in-game. Thank you, and if you enjoyed this, I highly recommend you check out the games, especially Fallout 4 and 76. If you don't want to jump right into these games, try the mobile game Fallout Shelter. You can download for free, and you can take care of your own vault with no experiments. Anything else related to Fallout, check out Bethesda.